Hey, everybody. Welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko, former immigration attorney turned entrepreneur. I am the co-founder and CEO of Laborless, an immigration tech platform that automates H-1B visa compliance, and also the founder of GMI Rocket, which is a digital marketing agency focused on the immigration and global mobility industry. Today's episode number 137. And I'm really excited to have our special guest, Oscar Pardo-Planas, who is the founder of Oscar's Green Card. So typically we have kind of more traditional, if you will, immigration tech company founders, folks who are building technology for immigration law firms to use with filings or an AI tool. But technology is, while that is certainly technology spans much more broader than that. Social media is technology. Online courses are technology. And Oscar is somebody who is a content creator who leverages YouTube and other channels to provide a lot of amazing information for folks who are interested in O1, EB-1, EB-2 visas. He is a scientist himself, and he has gone through almost every visa imaginable, including one that he's self-sponsored. And so he has this amazing story of his own immigration journey and how that inspired him to create a growing empire, if you will, of content creation and businesses for folks looking into self-sponsorship and extraordinary ability visas. So really excited to talk to Oscar, really excited to hear about his journey and what it's like being a content creator on YouTube. Before we get started with that, I do want to give a quick thank you to the main sponsor of this episode, 8 a.m. DocketWise. So DocketWise is an end-to-end immigration case management platform. They provide best-in-class immigration forums, customizable questionnaires in a number of different languages, industry-leading integrations, including with my platform, Laborless, amazing customer service. I've known the DocketWise team for a very long time, and one of the things I really like about them, in addition to all of that, is that they support the industry quite a bit. I mean, as a company, they have a blog that's very informative. They have an ebook that's supporting immigration lawyers with a lot of different resources and things. They have a podcast as well. Again, they support this show and other things. So if you're interested in learning about DocketWise, whether you're looking for a new case management or forms platform, or maybe you just want to know what they've got going on, check them out at 8am.com/DocketWise, or use the link in the show notes and tell them that you heard about them from the GMI Rocket Show. So with that, Oscar, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it, and I am super excited for this conversation.
Hey, Roman, nice to see you. And first of all, thank you for having me. I have been following you for a long time. We have connected a couple of years ago, at least, on LinkedIn. You're super active there, and I have seen what you do here. And I am a little bit intimidated because I have seen the guests you usually have, and you had big names. So I'm happy to be here, but also I feel like, wow, like it's a tall order. So let's see what we can do today.
The beauty of this is that everyone's got an amazing story, and I hope that at the end of the story, at the end of our episode, you're going to be like, you know what? Yeah, I am building something really awesome, because I do think you are. And I'm excited, to talk to you specifically because it is different, right? I mean, look, there are amazing entrepreneurs building technology for the immigration industry. But what you're doing is something different. You're creating a space for people to learn, for people to educate themselves, for people to understand what their options might be.
Right.
And again, I would argue you're using technology to get there. YouTube is a platform, that is on people's phones, your courses and things like that. So
I mean, today everything is on the internet, right? And everything is technology.
Exactly. Man, I remember when YouTube first came out, and I still, and at that time, people were putting all sorts of funny stuff. And who thought that, in a decade, it would be a full-time job, right?
And remember when it didn't have any ads also, like
That's right.
I still remember that, and now it's crazy.
And there was no algorithm. You just log in and see what people have posted.
Type and search. Yeah. It was a different time.
Before we get to all of that, I really love to dig into the guest's story and their backstory. So you are from Spain. You were born in Spain. I know you eventually came to the U.S. to study and work, and you had a whole you use so many different visas in terms of
Mm.
all so many letters. But before that, when you were growing up in Spain, tell
Mm.
me a little bit about that. Where did you grow up in Spain, and sort of what were you like as a kid? Were you very studious? I mean, I know you became a scientist, so
Mm.
certainly yes, but maybe were you entrepreneurial as well?
Mm.
What was little Oscar like?
Right. So I think little Oscar was a very normal kid. I grew up in, like you say, in Spain, more specifically in Galicia, which is a little country in the northwest that is not the typical image you have of Spain. Usually people think about the Spain of the south, very warm and sunny. And Galicia is more, if you want, is more like Ireland in terms of landscape and traditions. Also, we are a Celtic nation, so we have a lot of bagpipe music and all that. So it's really a different picture of what people think about Spain. And so I grew up there, and my father is Galician, my mother is Catalan, is from the other side of Spain, from Catalonia, where Barcelona is. And so I was a normal kid. I was studious, yes. Like I like to study. I did pretty well in school, but I was not particularly entrepreneurial. I would say until I was maybe 15 or 16, where the only thing I can highlight that was a little bit different maybe from other people is that I really liked local politics, which this is going to be surprising for many people that follow my channel. And I did have like a blog, and then it became really active in our town, because at that, like you said, it was a different time for internet, and there was no Facebook or any Twitter or anything like that. So I created a little blog, and that is the only parallelism I can find of what I'm doing right now with this green card thing and my childhood. Everything else, it was pretty normal. I have good friends. We went out. We went to the beach in summer, and nothing really to highlight there.
Well, so tell me about that. I'd love to learn a little bit more about this. I mean, at the time, as you said, the internet was not as big as it is today.
Mm.
You are a 15, 16-year-old, at most of the time they're thinking about maybe university, maybe they're thinking about dating, maybe about the
Right.
cars or something.
Mhm.
And maybe you thought about those things too, but you
Mm.
still spent the time and energy to
Right.
get into what got you into local politics, and sort of why, because it's not even just your interest in it. You said, I have to share my thoughts. I
Yeah.
have to put something down. What sort of sparked that?
Maybe that was something that made me a little bit different, in that I did have all those interests you mentioned. Of course, I want to have fun also, but I was always a person that wanted to do something about things that I could see on the street, but like very basic things. Like you go out, the sidewalk is broken or something like that, and you're like, someone has to do something about this. Little things. Like I remember I used to play tennis, which, by the way, I saw that you are also a tennis player, or at least amateur player, right? And we used to play, and the courts were public town courts, and they were not in good shape. So that really sparked a lot of things in me. Like, okay, we have to do something about it. Let's create this movement, and then what tools do we have? Well, internet is starting. That's like our little voice. We can do something with internet, and that was really how it started. And I saw, wow, this is powerful. We can reach people. We don't need to be a large media organization. We don't need to be a political party. We can do something here for free. Using the tools that are really, at that time, they were being born. Really.
So, okay, you go on the internet, you start talking about, the public courts and why aren't they fixed, and what happened? What result did you see?
Well, what I saw is that a lot of people of my age that I thought, well, they wouldn't really care about these things. Then I saw, well, people do care, but maybe sometimes they need that little spark and that little push. And then you get people to do things that you knew they were important, but maybe you thought, other people wouldn't put the same effort. And we actually got a lot of things in the long term, because these things don't happen overnight. There's this, at that time we had these politicians that were not used to this kind of youth movements, and eventually, over the years, we saw a lot of the things that we were advocating for. Like, we saw some change happening in the town, and I don't know if it was the direct action of what we were doing, but I think we had something to do with it, and it was good. It felt good, and that is something that I can draw a parallelism with today with Oscar's green card, that you have a tool that you can easily use to reach people, and you get a result and you feel good about it because you are helping people.
You know, it's interesting because you know, after this experience, I know you went to university in Spain, yeah, and you studied chemical engineering. I'm interested because I would think that somebody like you would want to go into political science, maybe, or philosophy. Did you think about that at all, or were you always, you know, in parallel of doing these things, were you always interested in engineering and in how things work and that kind of a thing?
Not really. And yeah, when you were posing that question at the beginning, I was thinking that, yeah, I don't have a great story in that sense. I'm not someone that even tell you, yeah, I was always playing with things. And like, my brother was like that. I remember my brother, when he was little, we would have the Christmas tree. He would cut the lights while they were on, while they were connected to the electricity, just to see what happens, you know, and then put them back together. And I was not like that. I grew up, I had a lot of interest, and when I got to the time of go and choose the degree, you know, in Spain you do a big examination, you get a grade, and I got good grades. I was good at exams, and I had to go and choose, and I was deciding between things like law, language, and different types of engineering. And so I went in the building. My father was parked outside waiting for me, and he didn't know what I was going to choose. Basically what I put on number one, it would be the choice I go through with. And I don't know why I chose chemical engineering, and it was good because eventually I liked it.
Yeah, that's so interesting because like you said, I could absolutely imagine you going into law, going into politics,
or journalism.
Journalism. Yeah, I mean, you started to do that, and and by the way, you still may, right? There's nothing holding you back from that, but it's just it's an interesting.
But if you think about it, it's so hard. And when now I have a little niece. Well, she's not as little anymore. She's 15, and I think about being that age and being lost in that sense that you don't know what you're going to do with your life in terms of a big decision like choosing a degree, for example. You think, well, if I choose something, you know, that's going to be it for the rest of my life. That's not the case, but at that point you feel that way, and it's so hard when you don't know. I remember how I felt. I felt really lost at that time.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, you know, it's a great thing that happened because that eventually brought you, you know, you finished university. I guess you did an exchange program in Denmark, so you had a little bit of an experience during university. But then after that, you decided to continue on with school, right? I mean, you did decide to go to the US.
Yeah, that was a little bit unintended, the going back to school. I actually, when I finished chemical engineering in Spain, at that time, we had a different system where it was not a bachelor or a master's. It was like kind of both of them combined. So it was, in my case, it was almost 6 years, 5 years plus a thesis at the end. And man, I was done. You know, I was like, when this is over, I don't want to study anymore. You know, I'm done. But then I started looking for jobs. It was not easy. And I had done 2 exchange programs, one in Denmark earlier, and then later one in Utah, which was part of the whole degree. And in Utah, I did research for the first time. I had heard of what research is and so on, but I had never really been exposed. And I liked it. I really liked it. It was like, okay, this is my thing. You know, chemical engineering was good, but I never wanted to go to a refinery or work on oil and gas or anything like that. But this was research on more like a bio field with bacteria and biofuels. And so when I finished, I started looking for jobs, and I found a position in Oklahoma, which at the time it sounded like a very remote area, which it kind of is, to be honest. But
sorry if anybody listening is from Oklahoma. We love you.
No, I mean, I lived there for years later, and it was great. But I really thought, well, this is a good opportunity because it's a job. It was not initially, it was not a PhD program, but it was a staff position in the university. And when I got there, they told me, well, but as part of your position, which is 100% staff, you have to do a part-time either master or PhD. And that's how I got back to school. Not because I chose it directly, but because they told me you have to do it. And, it was a good opportunity. I thought, look, I'm going to get another degree. And I went on and started my PhD that way.
Wow. And the staff position was a professor, basically, or an instructor?
No, so this was a very rare thing that I don't know if they still have it, but I never saw it in different departments, in different universities. It was in between a student and a professor. It was staff, so I went to Oklahoma with an H visa initially because I was not really a student, and I was in between. I was not a professor. I didn't have a PhD. I was not teaching. I was helping two professors with the research, basically, to design the experiments, conduct the experiments, present them, and so on.
Interesting. And so you came on there as on an H-1B visa. Presumably it was CAP exempt. But what was that process like? I mean, I know that wasn't your first experience. First, you came on a J-1 previous to that, right? An exchange program. Then you're coming on an H-1B. What was your process like now getting introduced to the U.S. immigration system?
Yeah, I think if we have someone listening that went through the system, they know what I'm going to talk about. It was confusing, to put it mildly, but then it was a surprise because I already realized when I was in Utah initially, that 1 year that I spent there, that the U.S. system was not as straightforward as I would think. I would think, well, if I'm doing something of value, this country will want me to stay, and there's going to be an easy avenue for me to do that. But as I was spending time in the US, and then you get into a university, you talk with a lot of students. Particularly, I had a couple of good Indian friends there, and they were explaining to me, no, look, like now you are on this visa, but then you have to do this, and then you have to do that, and then retrogression, and then like 1,000 words that I was like, what is this, And then eventually you start absorbing everything, and you understand that it's a tiring process. I think we probably all agree with that.
Yeah, and certainly at the very least with the university, you have the support of the international students, scholars, team.
Yeah, that was good. They were good. I don't know if it's like that in all the institutions, but in Oklahoma State, that part was amazing. And one of my professors, one of my bosses, Dr. Wilkins, who he's watching, I say hi. He was also the most supporting person when it came to visas, and in general, he was great.
And so, I know you spent a while there. You ended up graduating with your PhD, from Oklahoma State. Now, I know you came on an H-1B to Oklahoma. Did you have to switch to an F-1 when you really full-time enrolled in the PhD program?
No, I didn't. I could be on an H visa doing my PhD, and that's what I did for 3 years. But then during the last year, I switched to an F voluntarily because I wanted to get done with this. I wanted to move on with my life, and I felt, I didn't have enough time to do this work for two professors, and then on the excess time that didn't really exist, then work on my own dissertation. And so the last year I said, let's stop this, switch to an F visa. That was an option, and let's be full-time student. I got a pay cut of 50%, but I was really happy to be able to finish.
I see. Okay, so you finished on F1. Now you're graduating. You have OPT.
Yeah, and that was something that I didn't know at the time, and then I was like, that was a good move because now I have OPT.
Now you have OPT. It's a good move at first, right? So I know you graduated. You graduated in 2016, and you ended up getting a job
Yeah.
Now, tell me about that process. I mean, OPT is great. I mean, there are basically no issues, and you have your work authorization, especially as long as you're working in a field that is related to your job. So, what was that process like? You worked on OPT. You got a job as a scientist on OPT, and then.
So first of all, it was good all around, because I couldn't think what would have happened if I didn't do that switch, because I was on an H visa that I couldn't transfer to a private company, which is what I did eventually, go to a private company in Boston. So that OPT, because I was STEM, like, you can do a total of 3 years. So at least that gives you some time to react. So I ended up going to Boston, close to Boston, to a private company, a small startup company in the biotech sector. And I ended up there because I have a great friend who I work with in Oklahoma initially. I only overlap with Karthik, is his name, for 6 months in Oklahoma, but we became friends. I guess he liked me and I like him too. And so we kept in touch. And when I was about to finish, he kept calling me, "Hey, I'm in Boston, I need help," blah, blah. And I was like, "No, I'm not done yet." And then one day I said, "Yeah, now I'm done." So I went to Boston thanks to him. He was in this small company, and we worked together for many years, actually, in a small company in Medford, Massachusetts.
What did you work on, just out of curiosity?
So in Boston, we did RNA work. So RNA was not really that well known to the public until the infamous pandemic, unfortunately, when we started hearing about mRNA vaccines. And so this company called Greenlight Biosciences did a lot of fundamental work on RNA when I arrived, but initially it was for agriculture. So now we know about vaccines, but they were using a similar technology to apply to the fields and protect crops with a solution that would only affect the pests that they wanted to affect. So they could get theoretically rid of chemicals that we use as pesticides and apply something, an RNA molecule, that would only affect that insect that you want to affect. And so what I did there was, I'm a process engineer. I don't do like fundamental science really. I work more like with how do we scale the process up? How do we make something that makes sense on paper or on a very small scale? How do we make it in a process that is actually commercially relevant? And that's what we did together there.
That's really, really cool. And by the way, interesting, because that's perfect skills for building a business, for scaling a business. I mean, you can apply some of those same principles.
Right.
But let's say, very importantly, you went to this company, Greenlight Biosciences, in the Boston area, and you're now starting to work on RNA technology, which becomes, as you said, incredibly important in 2019, 2020, really when it started, and then when investment into all of the different vaccines.
Yeah, if you think about it, I was so lucky that I was there doing that, by coincidence, because everything happens in life. Sometimes it feels like everything happens by chance, and yeah, you're right. Like, a lot of attention came to that technology, and the company actually pivoted and split their attention into agriculture that we were doing and vaccines. They started really pushing for vaccines, and so for 1 year, 1.5 years, I was actually me and my team. I had a great team, by the way. We were doing both things at the same time. And sometimes I was in a meeting talking about vaccines in like at 11 a.m. and at 1 p.m. I was talking about how to save the bees with the new RNA solution that Greenlight was putting together. So that was a challenge, but it was super cool also.
Also very important, by the way, saving the bees.
Very important. And by the way, I heard that because I'm no longer in Greenlight, I heard that they are making a lot of progress with that particular product. So I'm excited.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. Different episode that we can talk about saving the bees, but I think that's really wonderful. So great. So you're at this company, and you're obviously doing really incredible work. Now you mentioned you started on F1 OPT. So how did the immigration process work out?
Yeah, so as for many people, you are an OPT and well, this is temporary. I have to find some bridge to something else. And I was never really obsessed about it. To be honest, I always thought that my time in the US was temporary, and if I had to go, I kind of gave up, mentally. It's like, well, when it happens, I'll go back to Europe. But once you're there, you start like, oh, well, now I have this position that I like, and I'm making progress in my career. And then I started thinking about it, and the company also started thinking about it. And so they sponsor my H visa, again, another H visa, but this time going through the lottery, because it was not an academic position. And so I went through the lottery, and I got to that third chance where if you don't get it, your OPT is going to run out and you have to basically leave. So when I was there in front of that third chance, the company did panic, and they were like, okay, what are the options? We need to find other options in case the lottery doesn't go through. And so they started looking into the green card. So I really owe that company everything that I'm doing now with the green card is because they took that decision and they opened my eyes, and they actually hired lawyers. They sponsor an EB-1 visa. And as I say many times, one of the things that happened there is that I was working with a big firm of lawyers, and they were not super responsive. So I felt I have done so much, of writing, of my contributions and reference letters and all that for the lawyers to put together that EB-1 package, that I felt like, what do I need to do for them to really speed up? And that's how I heard about this other route, EB-2 NIW, which it has some things in common. It's not EB-1 and EB-2 NIW are different categories, but some materials you can reuse. And so I learned about it, and I decided to go for that independently in parallel. And that's how, I became a little bit well versed in the matter, and I ended up filing my own NIW, and they filed their own EB-1. Funny enough, I did it before them.
Yeah, that's yep. Well, when you take it into your own hands, right, things go faster. And by the way, what was the result?
The result is that both I-140s were approved, and that was amazing, because now I had two options, and I eventually decided to go for. I was doing an adjustment of status, and I decided to go with their adjustment of status, just because they would fund it, they would pay for it, and so I didn't have to worry about it. But it was good to. I mean, going back to the feeling good part, I was talking about feeling good about helping others. In this case, was feeling good that I was able to do something by myself. At that time, there was really no information compared to now on internet about this topic, so it was much harder. So I felt great, only by getting the approval.
And what I like about it too is you mentioned you had this belief that, well, if I'm in the US and I'm providing value and I'm doing something that is important, there should be a way for me to stay. And it turns out that there is. It's not easy necessarily, but there are a few options. But then, of course, the challenge was you didn't know about it.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody told you about it in the beginning at the university level. Nobody told you when you entered your job. The company didn't know. Really, they started doing the research when it was almost getting too late.
And that is a very common mistake that I still today I find that people make, that they don't do the research, or nobody really tells them, look, the moment you set foot in the US, you really have to start thinking about these things, because if you, especially now with EB-2, when I did my NIW, it was current. Imagine, it was not so long ago, but the visa bulletin was so much better for the applicant. Now, if you go for an NIW route, you really need 2-3 years of time. So you better think about it soon.
Yep. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that pages and channels like Oscar's Green Card are so important. So I'm going to take a quick pause here, because I think it's a really good time to say thank you to the second sponsor of the show. As we're talking about you doing, working on your own green card, and then of course having multiple cases filed for you at the same time. So the second sponsor of this episode is Lawfully. So Lawfully actually started as a mobile app to help individuals and families track their own immigration cases. So whether they're family-based or even, you know, what you're working on. And actually to date, Lawfully has helped over 2.5 million people track almost 6 million cases. Last year, the company saw that there were a few people tracking hundreds of cases or even thousands of cases. And when they looked at it, they realized that it was legal professionals that were starting to use Lawfully to track cases for their clients. And so was the beginning of Lawfully Pro, which helps immigration law firms, in-house global mobility teams, nonprofits and educational institutions, I mean, like Oklahoma State and others. Not to say that Oklahoma State is one of their clients, but a company, organization like that, they can use Lawfully Pro to track their employees or, you know, students or others cases across USCIS, NVC, DOL, even EOIR, to address case status questions and timelines and stuff like that. So Lawfully currently helps over 120 organizations, including law firms and nonprofits and corporate. So for anybody out there who's listening, check them out. It's lawfully.com.
Sorry, a lot of individuals also.
Many individuals. So thank you to Lawfully for being a sponsor of this episode. So, you know, and I think that's a really good segue to this, because you also had this realization as you were going through your own process, tracking your own cases, you know, figuring out what evidence you can reuse for other case types, that the information was simply not out there. So I know Oscar's green card didn't happen overnight. So what was the thing that sort of got you in the moving in the direction of what would become Oscar's green card eventually?
Yeah, so like many things in life, like I was saying, it happens naturally. You know, you don't really plan for it until you are there already doing it. But it happened because I was working in this company where there were a lot of people from around the world. At some point, I think we were like 30 or 40 nationalities, and it was a startup company. It was a small place, so it was very rich and diverse. It was a great place to work. And I was getting people asking me all the time because they heard, oh, Oscar, you remember that he was doing the last H visa lottery and he almost didn't get it. By the way, I did get it eventually also. But they heard the story. They heard, oh, and Oscar applied for this green card by himself. And so they would come to my desk and it's like, hey, I heard that you did this. Can you show me how you did it? Can we talk? So we would sit and I would explain. And that happened repeatedly to the point that I actually organized my files to show people and to share it with people in the company. And so I started wondering, well, if in 100, I think at that point maybe we were 200 people company, there's so many people that ask me every year about this, what is the situation out there if we take the full state, the full US, or the whole world? Like there must be a lot of people wondering about this, or people, like you said earlier, people that don't know about this, that they should know about this and they should take action. And so that's how I went from, you know, giving my friends really that information to putting it out there. I created a website. The original website was, and still exists, EB-2 NIW.info. And the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel was the second thing that I created. And initially, really the only thing I was doing was videos online, and videos that if I watch now, they are a bit embarrassing, but they are still out there and they're still, you can watch them. And then I put my own petition for sale, and I saw the response was good. People were buying it, and people really liked the YouTube videos, even if they were really homemade, do-it-yourself videos with my webcam in my laptop. You know, there was nothing like this. You know, now everything is a little bit more professional, but at the time it was just me. Like I was gonna say in my basement. It was not in my basement, but it could be. You know.
Yeah. So when you're saying you put your petition for sale or some of the documentation or information, what were you starting to share at that time? You know, obviously you saw that there was a need for more knowledge. and you've worked on your own case. So, because now I'm trying to get into your business mind. You looked around and you said, okay, I have assets. I have things that I have created for myself. How can I make these relevant to other people? So what did you do? What did you start, sharing and selling?
Right. So for people that are not super familiar with this, when you file for a green card like EB-2 NIW or EB-1A, you have to submit, there are 2 steps in the process. The first is the I-140 step, where you submit a big package to USCIS. And basically you have a lot of documents with your credentials, with your degrees and your awards and your publications and whatever you have. But then there is also what usually the lawyers would write. Sometimes they call it the brief, or I call it the petition cover letter, whatever you want to call it. It's a document where you summarize to the officer why you fulfill each of the requirements of that category. And it's cool because it's like a story. You're telling the officer the story that really connects all those credentials that you're attaching to the package. So what I put out there for sale was that full package, the petition cover letter telling the officer, look, this is me, this is what I've done, this is the importance of what I do, especially for NIW, this is why my research is important and I should stay. And then all those documents, so people could see how you do it. It's not like they can copy paste because the petition is mine. I mean, nobody was doing exactly the same kind of work, but they can see the methodology that is used, how you argue, how you tell the officer the story, how you reference the document. So that's what I initially sold. And in parallel, that's what I was initially telling people in the YouTube channel. This is how I did the recommendation letters. This is how I wrote the petition cover letter. And eventually, this all led to creating these more comprehensive courses where everything is more systematic and it lives on a platform and it's a more professional way.
So when you shared your petition, you shared it with all of your information, basically.
Yeah, redacted for more personal details.
Sure.
But social security number and
of course, yeah, right, yeah, and but yeah, that's interesting because then to your point, they can see what you did, and of course, it wouldn't make sense to copy it. It's actually brilliant because if they copy it, it's going to hurt them. What they really need to do is look at what you did and try to figure out how to do it on their own. I love that because it's even smarter. It's even easier. You didn't have to create a fake generic version. You just said, here is mine. If you want to look at what a successful application looks like, here it is.
Yeah, and now that we transition to the business part, I think that is probably, I mean, there were a couple of factors why our YouTube channel became popular. One was simply because there weren't a lot of channels out there doing the same thing. So it was good timing. But the second one is the personal story, is people saw what I was saying, even if it was, or maybe especially because it was not well produced. It was like me at home explaining something. And they saw like, look, this guy has done it. He has suffered all this immigration journey that we all deal with, and he has completed his own green card process, and now he's sharing his stuff for us to use it as we see fit. So it's very organic, it's very authentic. There's no, it's not like me inventing a story or anything. It's like this is who I am and what I've done. So people like that.
So tell me a little bit about how the channel started to grow. Did you call it Oscar's Green Card from the beginning?
Not right at the beginning, but in a matter of a couple of weeks, I did change the name. Initially, it was like EB-2 NIW, something, I don't know. But I was like, I'm going to call it Oscar's Green Card because going back to the authenticity, is like, as much as I hated putting my face out there, I must say, I didn't love the idea of being there on YouTube. But initially I thought, nobody is going to watch this. I'm doing this for fun, really. And then I thought, well, if I call it Oscar's Green Card, it really already tells the story in the title. It's like, it's my green card. They're looking at my narrative of my journey. And I'm not pretending to be a lawyer. In fact, we always say, we're not lawyers and all that. So this is about a do-it-yourself person that is sharing what they did really. And so yeah, the name was pretty early on.
And so I guess the idea was you started talking about your story. And how does a channel like this evolve? Because, you obviously now, if somebody goes through your YouTube channel, you talk about not just how to create the petition and not just your story. You talk about consular wait times, you talk about visa bulletin, you talk about requests for evidence. You've had different speakers on the show. I mean, I know most recently you had an ex-USCIS officer from Manifest Law come on, and so you have been building this into a kind of an immigration content channel, still focused on these green cards and extraordinary ability cases, but a little more broadly. So how did, was that in response to feedback? How did that evolve,
Right. So initially, like I said, it was purely for fun, and I wanted to spend time doing that. There was no second thought. There was definitely no business thinking. Like going back to your first questions. Same as when I was a kid, I didn't have a special entrepreneur spirit, and even a few years ago, I didn't have it also. But it just happened, and it grew because I was doing this as a hobby, and I was very consistent. I think YouTube is really hard, to be honest. I didn't know at the time, but you really have to be consistent. You have to be there every week or whatever time you decide, and then people have to start watching. And it happened that people started watching slowly, but really steadily growing. It was, especially in the first 1-2 years, I went from 3 views in the first videos during 1 week to getting my first 1,000 view video very, very quickly. And then that helps you, that motivates you. It's like, oh, look, like people are watching. I don't know who they are. It's kind of crazy, but that leads to you wanting to create more content. And there was so much content to be created because, like I said, there was not a lot of YouTube material on this. And then one big factor that we spoke in private about is that at some point in Boston, unfortunately, I was not feeling well, and so I decided to take a break in my scientific career, and so that gave me an opportunity to devote more time to this, and because I liked it, and when you do something that you like, and I'm sure you agree, because I follow you, and sometimes you write about this on your LinkedIn. You do something you like, it kind of comes natural. It's so great because you are at home. You're like, well, I can watch a movie, or maybe I can spend a little bit of time doing this for YouTube. And I'm like, yeah. And so at that point where I was on my break, then I really put some effort, and I saw a lot of return in terms of audience and interest, and that led to creating the courses. I really sat down and I produced those video lessons, and it became a company.
So talk to me a little bit about those courses. So right now I'm on your website, which is it's basically a store. I mean, I guess you have different ones, but you have an EB-2 NIW course, EB-1 course are your most popular. You have an RFE course, profile building. What does that look like? What does a course look like? Who is it made for? Who's the audience there?
So the audience is any person that is a do-it-yourself filer, someone that either doesn't have the money or they don't want to spend the money on a lawyer, or we also have people that are working with a lawyer, but they really want to understand what goes on behind the scenes, so they can interact with a lawyer in a more efficient way, and they can understand, how is this petition put together, so I can help the lawyer do their job in a more efficient way. So that's really the target, and the courses were really born because putting the petition out there, like we discussed earlier, that was the first product, my petition. You can download it, you can take a look, and you can do whatever you want with it. But that was not enough for a lot of people, because some people are fine with that and they can run with it and do their own thing easily, but some people need more guidance. So I decided, okay, I need to create lessons on each particular piece of the puzzle here, because the petition is a big thing, and you have to put a lot of things together. In NIW, you have to know how to argue that your work that you do, your proposed endeavor, is nationally important, for example. So there are strategies to do that. So I cannot go to your place and write the case for you because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not going to do that. But I can tell you what are the ingredients and the strategies that you can use when you have to sit down and write each part of the petition. So it's for people that have the energy and the will to actually take their future on their own hands. It's not for people that need 100% guidance on everything.
Mm-hmm. And what is the target audience is, it's people that want to do it themselves. Are these people who are, I mean, maybe you don't know because you obviously don't know every candidate. Are they already somebody who is a scientist or an engineer or a business person? Or do you have people who maybe are students, or they're just curious about what will I need to know in the future when I need to, or maybe when I apply for one of these, and I would like to learn about it from you now.
So like you said, I don't know everyone because at the end of the day, it's an online course. I do interact with some of them because in the NIW course, we have a monthly live session where at least I see people, but otherwise, if they don't reach out, I don't know them. And my guess, educated guess, is that most people are already established professionals in their field, not necessarily scientists. Actually, I think probably the minority of them are scientists. I had seen a lot of everything, really, from a diplomat at United Nations to someone doing AI work to obviously scientists as well, but a little bit of everything. And it's people that already knows about the category probably because of the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is really the window where people can see through, and then it's like, oh, I want more of this, so I'm going to go to the course. It's like the natural upgrade. And this year we created that introductory profile building course, which is just an introduction, and that's more for people that they are not sure about it. They want to hear about both categories, and we created that. But for the most part, I think people already know what they want. They just want to sit down, listen to the videos in the course, and start working.
Interesting. What, I know that on your website, I mean, really, or where the course is right up front on the top, it says, my name is Oscar Pardo. I'm a scientist, not a lawyer. I know you say it in your videos. I know you say it on your YouTube channel. What is the relationship between, the people that come and talk to you and, the work that you do and sort of the legal space? I mean, as an immigration lawyer, people who follow me and my channel and my videos, a lot of them are immigration attorneys. Of course, a lot of them are also immigration professionals, but they work in the service, immigration law firm, let's say, service industry. And I think it's been interesting over the past few years with more companies coming up that allow for DIY. I mean, Oscar's Green Card, Boundless is one very big one, which started as a family-based company for folks to get support, but it's not necessarily with a lawyer. And, I think it's being normalized now. I think a lot of attorneys and legal professionals are saying, okay, not everybody who doesn't have a lawyer needs one. Right. Would I want to help every single person? Of course, because that's work and we can do good work and we can really make sure that they're doing it right. But there are many, many cases where people file for this on their own. So, where do you fit in there, do you think? How do you feel you kind of fit into the whole ecosystem of immigration?
That's a very good question, an important question, because so ethically, we don't want to cross a certain line, right? I am not a lawyer. I say it 1,000 times, but it's not just about saying it. It's about not crossing that line where I cannot, for sure, I cannot file a petition for someone. That's number one. I think legally that's already a red flag. But I cannot provide individualized advice to people, and it's hard because people are on your course and they send questions, and I respond to questions, but it's always from the angle of this is about the process. So I'm going to rephrase or reframe your question so I can post it publicly. Actually, in the platform, everyone can see the questions that everyone else asked. So it can benefit people because we're talking about the process. We're not talking about your case specifically. So sometimes I do that. I rephrase the wrong question. I'm like, look, this is the answer. And so we fit in a space in between a full do-it-yourself, if you were to go online and just download a petition and do everything by yourself, and a consultant or a lawyer that actually writes for you. We don't write for people. We only give them tools, give them video lectures, give them sample petitions, answer questions in a general way, but we never cross that line. And like you said, one thing that I like recently is that some lawyers have started recognizing that, that this is fine. Not everyone can afford that kind of fee. I mean, that's the reality. But I also understand the lawyers that get defensive when they see that there are people out there that are actually doing lawyers' work when they are not lawyers. So I do understand that, and I could see a lot of resistance to something like Oscar's green card a few years ago. Now is easing up a lot because, well, in our case, because at the end of the day, people see what you're doing, and eventually they also understand, and they differentiate who is who in this ecosystem, right? That is becoming so large also.
It's cool too, because when I take a step back and I think about the broader, ecosystem, as you put it, so you provide a great service and great content. For some people, it's just for the beginning. I mean, maybe they eventually will learn from you and, read a lot about it and then go to a lawyer if it's too difficult, or if they have questions, or maybe they want to, maybe when they come to you, they are still in their PhD program and, they're not making a lot of money and they're very cost conscious. 2 years later, they have a job and they can afford an attorney and they feel more comfortable with that. So I know that there are certain different aspects. It's interesting when you take a step back, number one, for people who come to you through YouTube or other platforms, if they're ready for a lawyer, presumably you can maybe point them in the direction of a lawyer, for example. Another option is maybe they say, well, I don't have the ability to pay. I actually don't want to do it myself. I want a lawyer, but I can't afford it right now. There are companies out there that will help specifically people with immigration filings with loans. They'll give them loans. They have their own kind of credit check, if you will. They don't look at Social Security. They don't look at credit card statements. They look at other things that take your immigration profile into consideration, and they give you a loan for an EB-1, for an EB-2, et cetera, and then you pay them back. So the lawyer actually gets paid up front, so they could do their work, and then this company works with the individuals. So it's cool to see the pieces kind of fit together into this one puzzle of helping individuals with immigration support, regardless of where they are in terms of ability to pay, in terms of where they are in terms of knowledge, and things like that.
I never heard about that. I will do, well, maybe you can send me the information.
Sure.
That loan system. That's cool. You always learn something new, you see, in this space. But I think, there has to be a solution for everyone, really. And if there isn't, and I'm sure because you had this show for 100 how many times, so you learn about a lot of different pieces of this puzzle. If there isn't that solution for that particular profile, it's going to get created. Somebody is going to do it, right? Someone like you or me, they will be like, oh, like there isn't this solution, I want it, so eventually it's going to be there, and that's fine. I mean, what is not fine is, like I said earlier, people stepping on other professions. Like if I were to file petitions, for example, it wouldn't make any sense. People should understand that. But as long as you do something that is well explained, that is clear, these are my boundaries. And as much as sometimes I want to help people more because I feel I know the answer, but you have to restrain yourself and you have to stay here, and maybe, you can collaborate with lawyers. Like you mentioned Manifest the other day, we had a session with them. There are avenues and ways to do that, but you have to be careful with how you do things.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what you are working on. What's your vision for the future? Where do you see Oscar's green card? The channels are continuing to grow. You have over 2 million. I mean, you've only had your channel for since 2022, 3.5 years. You have over to almost 3 million views cumulatively. You know, your biggest video, I think, has over 100,000 views. I mean, and your videos are constantly getting more and more traction. Where do you see this this business growing?
So first of all, we do have another secondary channel that I want to mention. It's in Spanish, Oscar's Green Card Español. So that is newer and it's still in a different phase. So that's also exciting to watch. Now YouTube is starting to dub videos and all that, but we actually produce videos in both languages. And recently, well, not recently, almost 2 years ago, I got a second person on board, which is Marina. And Marina is a long-time friend. So now I'm so blessed because I'm not only doing something that I like, but I'm doing it with my closest friend, really. So it's great. And I don't think we're going to grow in terms of people. I like to keep it like this. You know, it's a small enterprise, you know, very do-it-yourself in all senses. But we will continue to produce videos. We are going to increase those live sessions that people like, and you know, we opened this can of collaborations this week with Manifest, and it's a good can. So I think people loved it, and I see that sort of collaboration maybe going forward in the future, and then we cannot do much more because having a course, people need to understand that our courses are not static. You know very well that immigration changes over time, and we have to update the course. Yeah, it's on demand, so people may think, well, you produce the videos, you put them there, and you're done. But the reality is that every couple of months we have to re-record lessons. We have to keep doing research, which we also do for our YouTube videos. So everything works in combination. But I don't think we're going to go much farther in terms of number of products because I don't want to hire people, and I want to keep it very, very family-based kind of.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, you know, really, but the growth can be in the growth of followers, the growth in subscribers, the growth of customers, you know, and as immigration continues to move in a certain direction, if EB-1s, EB-2 NIWs, do you guys do O1s also, or only the green card?
No, we don't. Okay. And that is always a thought, you know, do we go there? But then this other voice comes and it's like, but you have to update the courses every time you make something new.
Right.
It comes with a toll, right? Like a constant work. So I don't think for now we're going to go there, but we do some improvements in the sense of technology. Going back to your technology question, also AI is a big thing, right? And so last year we launched our own AI tools inside the course for NIW, where we have some bots that we train with our course knowledge, so people can talk with them, and also they can get feedback on certain portions of what they wrote. So this bot, because it's trained by us, they know Oscar's methodology, and it can give you feedback as if it was me, basically. And so that kind of little thing I want to continue growing, but it's not like a huge product. It's like a natural improvement of what we offer.
Yeah. No, that's I love that, and I didn't realize, and that's when somebody buys the course, that's where they get access to this AI.
Well, that is actually an add-on, and they have to pay I think it's $25 extra. So we make things in a very modular way. The course comes with 8 hours of video lectures. It comes with sample petition. You can submit questions that I answer in 24 hours usually. And the NIW course comes with a 1 monthly live session. And then if you want, you can get these AI tools for an additional fee. And that's like an extra. And there are other extras too.
Is it a one-time fee or is it a monthly recurring fee?
It's a monthly fee.
For the courses or for the AI?
No. The course is a year subscription. So you get 1 year access. And then we have a discounted price if you need a second year, which shouldn't be needed, but sometimes it is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I may want to buy the course now, but maybe I won't actually need it for 3 years. So maybe I want to, pay and have access to it for multiple years.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love that. So I like to end, episodes on this particular question. And I think right now, you're continuing, this is still a new venture for you and you're still growing. So a lot of people like to ask, what advice would you give yourself if you went back in time, or what advice would you give to another entrepreneur? So I like to flip the question and ask, what advice are you listening to right now? What advice is relevant to you now in this stage of your venture, of your business?
Well, I think it's like being humble, and really control what you have, and don't want to grow so fast. Even if I told you earlier that I'm a scale-up engineer, or maybe because that's my background, don't grab too much that you cannot manage, right? And that's something that I feel everyone should pay attention to, because if you overcommit, then you're probably going to underdeliver, and that's never a good idea. I don't want to let people down. For us, for me, and for Marina, reputation is so important. Even if we are doing something that is a small company with a small YouTube channel, I really don't want our reputation to go bad, because people really trust in what we say. So if we start doing a lot of things like we were discussing earlier, imagine I want to hire people and grow the business, and maybe it's going to go out of control.
Yep. Especially with immigration, where it's very important to, deliver something people can trust, because if they don't trust you, that's your whole business.
Yeah, and it's going to be tarnished. And we see so many cases of companies out there that you go on Reddit and there's so much negativity around, probably rightfully so, but I don't want to end up like that, not because of the business, right? Because I if this was my career from childhood, I would be like, yeah, I cannot lose this. But it's not because of an economic thing. It's because ethically, I'm invested in this. I want to help people, and I care about people's opinion.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Oscar, where can people find you? The best place to follow you, I guess, would be on YouTube, right? Oscar's Green Card.
Yeah.
And Oscar's Green Card Español.
And Oscar's Green Card Español. We even thought about doing Oscar's Green Card Portuguese, because I speak a similar language, but we are not going there also.
Not yet.
No, but and then oscarsgreencard.com is our website, our latest website that really, the only thing it does is it directs you to one of our first websites, EB-1 or EB-2 NIW, because we scaled up that way. We start with EB-2NIW.info, then EB-2 NIW Espanol.info, then EB-1greencard.info, and now we have oscarsgreencard.com that will send you to the right place depending on what you're looking for.
Gotcha. Perfect. And the YouTube channels are linked there as well.
Yeah.
Great. So oscarsgreencard.com. Oscar, thank you so much. This was such a great conversation, and I'm really inspired and excited to hear that. And you started a YouTube channel only 3.5 years ago, and people would say it's impossible to grow a channel, and here you are providing great value and growing a channel and building a business out of it. So, I wish you the best of luck with it, and I'm excited to. I subscribed to you right now. I've been looking at your channel, since in preparation for the show, and
we do have a counter here.
Yeah, that's true. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. What you do is great. I follow you, and thank you for having me. I keep doing what you do.
Awesome. Thank you. What a great episode. For folks who are watching, please do check out Oscar's videos. They're really informative, and they're not very long, and they give you tidbits of information. And so if you could share them with your friends or family, if you're an immigration law firm, hey, maybe there are opportunities to partner. So reach out to Oscar or other businesses as well. So thank you to them. I want to give another final quick thank you to the main sponsor of this show and of this episode, 8 a.m. DocketWise. So again, DocketWise is an end-to-end immigration case management platform for immigration law firms, but also for in-house teams. Many corporations use DocketWise to handle their immigration forms and their cases. for their employees. They provide forms and customizable questionnaires for their clients or for their employees, integrations with all sorts of tools, payment tools, calendar tools, email tools, compliance tools like laborless translation apps, etc. DocketWise has a little bit of an ecosystem there. Great customer service. DocketWise is a wonderful supporter of the industry by providing content to help immigration attorneys and professionals also learn and expand what they know. There's a blog and an ebook and a podcast, much like what Oscar is doing in terms of educating the industry. DocketWise does that as well for immigration lawyers and paralegals through their content. So check them out. The website is 8am.com/DocketWise, or click on the link in the show notes. And if you talk to them, please tell them you heard about them from the GMI Rocket Show. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you being here and tuning in and watching and listening wherever you are. Next week is Thanksgiving. Well, the day after Thanksgiving, so there won't be an episode then, but the week after, come back for another episode of the GMI Rocket Show. And until then, have a great weekend. Be safe and peace out.